So, I did some testing with the Roving Sanctuary, and it turns out you get less damage increase from it compared to Empathy's Blessing. It's not huge difference. With the gear we had on, we did drop our resonance a little bit. We did about almost 600,000 damage on 30 seconds with the Empathy's Blessing, and we did under 500,000 with the Roving Sanctuary. And here are the test results side by side. Now, after seeing those, it's not the all definitive answer that we should only be using Empathy's Blessing because it did a little bit more damage. As we know, if we do use the Roving Sanctuary, it does move with us. So, if we use Empathy's Blessing and we drop it on the monster back, once that monster back is down and we start moving to another location, we lose that Empathy's Blessing. We need to wait for the cooldown to get another one going. This means that when you are killing the monsters inside the dungeons, most of the time, Roving Sanctuary will be better. And there are also other things that will highly impact that which one you should actually be using. Now, this doesn't really impact if you're doing random dungeons with random people, because it really matters on what your teammates are using. Because as we know, damage buffs does not stack with each other. So if you are using Empathy's Blessing and you have Barbarian using damage buff, or you have two Empathy's Blessing, they don't stack. So you don't get the benefits from whichever buff ever you Empathy's Blessing or Barbarian's buffing or whatever. So in those cases, if you know you have a mate you're going to play with and he has a damage buff, then you should be using the Roving Sanctuary. So first, the damage buffs actually buffs the damage, the base damage. And then the Roving just gives a critical hit chance on top of that, and you guys are getting a bit more damage out of that, because now the critical hit is buffed with the damage buff. Now, on the other hand, if we do have a banner with a Crusader, which makes every hit critical strikes, that doesn't increase the Roving Sanctuary's damage. Roving Sanctuary and banner doesn't really work that well together, so at that time you should be using Empathy's Blessing, because now you get a 35% damage increase, and after the 35% damage increase, the banner increases the damage once again, so it's multiplicative and it's over 70% damage increase. So that's way better than using Roving Sanctuary and banner at the same time. Now, of course, this means that you need to have your teammates be your mates, because if you are going inside the random dungeon, it doesn't really matter that much which one you are using. Then you might just use the Roving Sanctuary because you can move the buff around when your teammates are running around, and you can keep them buffed a bit easier. Although then again, Empathy's Blessing does a little bit more damage, but again, the damage inside the dungeons with the buffs are still so high, it doesn't really matter that much. It's just a big difference if you have a lot of buffs going on and you try to stack them and it doesn't work together, then you lose so much potential that you could have. But again, if you are playing with the randoms, you can't control what they are using. But if you are playing with your mates, you should really ask them, what are you guys using? If you have a Crusader, you should already know that, yeah, that Crusader is probably using banner, so you don't even have to ask, you just go and use the Empathy's Blessing instead. Now, if you do have something like Barbarian, and the Barbarian is using the damage buff for your party, or you have two monks, then other one should be using the Roving Sanctuary. So the damage buffs and critical buffs stacks, and you get that just a little bit extra damage and can kill the bosses faster, and actually just everything just tiny bit faster. Because now if you do use Empathy's Blessing and you have two Empathy's Blessing on top of each other, it's the other Empathy's Blessing does absolutely nothing, and you lose all the value out of the other ones. Now, on the other hand, if you do have Roving Sanctuary and Empathy's Blessing on top of each other, then your damage is just increased by increased damage, and it's going to be so much better, and the bosses are going to go so much faster down. So this is just my tips with the Roving Sanctuary. It doesn't mean the Roving Sanctuary is bad because it did a little bit less damage than the Empathy's Blessing, because there is a place where you should be using Roving Sanctuary and there is a place where you should be using Empathy's Blessing. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will catch you on the next one.